What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Today's episode of the podcast is our preview of the AFC North division for the upcoming NFL season. It's a very fun episode. Hope you guys enjoy these previews as much as we enjoy making them. Before we get to the episode, I wanted to talk about my favorite baseball team, the Boston Red Sox. I said on Tuesday's episode, the preview of the NFC North, that you should go check out if you haven't listened to that already, that you were going to get two episodes of Fouled Out this week, and you were going to get one episode before the MLB trade deadline and one after. Well, we are here after, and I actually have to re-record this segment because I recorded it last night initially, right after the deadline passed, and I was very, very passionate about what the Red Sox did, or more accurately, didn't do at the deadline. And there was a lot of F-bombs and a lot of things that that it might be a Patreon exclusive. that recording probably shouldn't see the light of day. My big problem with the Boston Red Sox trade deadline is that it is a continuation of what we have seen from the front office and the ownership group over the last couple of years. And it is just that this team is not interested in winning baseball games. John Henry does not own the Boston Red Sox to try to win baseball games and to try to win championships. He owns the Boston Red Sox because he makes a shitload of money off of them, which he likes to invest in other ventures like real estate and Liverpool soccer. And this trade deadline was just a continuation of that trend. We saw a couple of years ago, they didn't want to pay Mookie Betts. We've seen how that's turned out. You know, they traded Rafi earlier this year, Rafael Devers, to basically just clear that space, that $250 million. And when they traded him, they promised the fans that they were going to be aggressive and they were going to reinvest that money in the team. But here we are a couple months later, and I will grant you that it was probably a good trade for baseball reasons. The Giants are the worst team in the majors since that trade. The Red Sox have been good. But the Red Sox have done absolutely nothing with that money that involves the Boston Red Sox. So if the point of the trade was really, hey, we're going to save a bunch of money and invest it in the roster in other ways, I could understand that, but not a single dime has been spent on this roster since that trade. Bregman has not been extended. And there was a rumor yesterday well before any trade started happening, there was a rumor yesterday that the Red Sox had about $9 to $10 million before they started hitting whatever the next tax threshold is, and that John Henry had very likely given Craig Breslow a budget to stay below that tax threshold. So when they go out and make trades, they trade for Dustin May, who's a mediocre, not great pitcher from the Dodgers, little rotation depth, but not necessarily any better than Walker Buehler or Dick Fitz, right? Like, they did not make an upgrade to the back of that rotation. They just got another guy who's more of the same. And they get the reliever, Steve Matz, from the Cardinals, who has previous experience starting, but he is in the bullpen for a reason. And it's a decent bullpen upgrade. It's okay. I would have liked to see them do more in the bullpen. They did not get a first baseman. You know, they didn't add any hitting to this offense that has been extremely inconsistent throughout the year. And if it truly is a situation where they're like, hey, we're doing our best to add to the team, but we have to stay under a budget, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous for the Boston Red Sox to have a budget. Every other team around you in the playoff race improved over the last week. You're the only team that didn't. The Mariners, the Yankees, the Tigers, the Blue Jays, the Astros, the Texas Rangers, every other team improved except for you. You added a couple arms that are fine. And the reason that you didn't improve is because your owner doesn't want to spend money. They're not a serious organization. They're not serious about winning baseball games. This is a fun young team that had a really good shot at making the playoffs this year and potentially making a little bit of noise at least and getting some experience for guys like Roman Anthony who could really use that playoff experience. But they don't care about that. That's not what they want. They want to just make as much money off of this team as possible so that they can invest it in other things. And I've said this multiple times on the podcast, is that if that is going to be your mentality, then sell the team. because the fans deserve better than John Henry. The fans deserve better than Craig Breslow. Like, you have diehard loyal fans that have rooted this team on through thick and thin. And it has been so thin over the last couple of years because of your unwillingness to spend money. Not only did you trade Mookie Betts, you let guys like Nathan Eovaldi, JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts walk for nothing, which has always been my biggest problem. It wasn't necessarily that you let them walk. It's that you didn't trade them when you had the chance to get assets back, because they don't want assets back because they don't want to fucking pay anybody. They have no interest in spending any money at all on this roster. And then the coup de grace yesterday, the thing that really set me over the edge and sent me on my initial tirade that has since been deleted, is about 30 minutes before the trade deadline, a report comes out that says the Red Sox are making a desperate push to acquire Joe Ryan from the Minnesota Twins. One of the best pitchers in the game, a guy that they had been linked to for a couple weeks, but had not made any offers for weeks until about 30 minutes to go yesterday. And I am 100% convinced that they did not make a serious offer for him. We saw reports from Chris Cotillo, who's a Red Sox beat reporter, that their offer to the Minnesota Twins was quote unquote nowhere close to what it would take to get him. And it reminds me of the Juan Soto thing from this offseason, where they were quote unquote in on Juan Soto. But then after he signed with the Mets, it came out that the Red Sox offer was actually nowhere close to that of any of the other teams that were serious contenders for his services. They are gaslighting you, and they are smokescreening you into believing that they want to invest in this team and that they care about winning, but they are not actually doing what it takes to win at a high level. It's fake reports that they were going after Joe Ryan. They were not seriously going after him because you would have to trade numerous prospects. And I'm not going to get into whether it's worth it or not to trade guys like Marcelo Mayer and Franklin Arias and all that. But what the Red Sox philosophy is right now is that it is not worth it to trade any of those guys because they can keep them on smaller contracts for a longer amount of time. And again, not spend any money. Joe Ryan would cost money. You know who doesn't cost money for a while? Marcelo Mayer. And I'm not saying I wanted to trade him. I'm just saying that winning baseball games is not part of the formula for Craig Breslow and John Henry right now. It is, how do we maximize revenue off this team? They're treating it like a business, which it is a business, but the business you need to be in is the business of winning baseball games, because people are going to get sick of your shit eventually. And I've heard the point like, oh, it's a good young team. They're fun to watch. Like, just enjoy them. I'm just waiting for the day where we find out that Roman Anthony is not getting extended. One of the best young players that we have ever seen in a Red Sox uniform. That the day that they let him walk because they don't want to pay him what he's worth. Because that day's coming. If John Henry is the owner of this team, they will not pay anybody what they're worth. People will walk. It's going to be more of the same shit for years and years and years. Until John Henry sells this team. I've said it a couple times on this podcast. You want us to believe that you're serious about winning baseball games? Put your money where your mouth is. And if you're not going to do that, sell the goddamn team to someone who will. Because yesterday was just another example of them not being willing to spend money to win baseball games. They're just not. They're winning baseball games decently this year. They have a decent record right now. They've been playing okay lately. Granted, it's been against some really tough competition, but they're not willing to do what it's going to take to put this team over the top. We're just going to be stuck on this hamster wheel for years. And I want you all to mentally prepare yourself for when they don't extend Bregman, for when they don't give Roman Anthony what he deserves. Because it's coming. It's coming as long as John Henry owns this team. And I'm going to keep saying it until they prove me wrong, because so far, for years, they haven't. It's been years of not being interested in investing in this team. And yesterday was just more of the same. And it's really disappointing because I've really been enjoying the Red Sox lately. I've been getting very into baseball with the recent runs they've been on. But this really put a damper on the season for me because I thought this team had a chance to make noise in the playoffs. And now I'm concerned that we're just going to see what we've seen for the last couple of years, where they're competitive up until the trade deadline. Management and ownership do absolutely nothing, and the team just completely falls apart. I really thought they could have used a couple more pieces yesterday. Didn't have to be Joe Ryan, but what they did was basically nothing. So that's your Red Sox update. We'll see how it goes. If Bregman doesn't get extended at some point this season, we'll be back talking about the Red Sox on the opening of this podcast. And it's just going to be the same thing I've been saying every time that I do a Red Sox opening. Put your goddamn money where your mouth is or sell this team. With that said, let's go talk about something fun. Let's talk about football. We got football season coming up, but we got an AFC North preview to do. So let's grab Matt. Let's get on to divisional preview number 2, the AFC North. Let's go. All right, Matt is here, ready to talk about our second divisional preview, the AFC North. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
I am excellent, ready to talk more football and another division where I'm sure we're going to be completely aligned on how all 4 teams will finish in this division, just like the NFC North podcast. If you guys missed that podcast, it dropped on Tuesday, the 29th, so go back and check that out. The home of Matt's favorite team, the Motor City Kitties. But for now, this is an AFC podcast, which means it is my turn to lead off, and I will get us started with my biggest storyline for the AFC North. Can the Ravens get out of their own fucking way? I think I know the answer to this, but we'll walk through it.
History has your answer.
2 years ago, we talked a lot about how it was really the Ravens' year to win the Super Bowl if they were going to do it with Lamar Jackson. They had the best roster in the league. They were the number 1 seed. They had dominated DVOA. Like, that was the year that they beat, I think, 5 playoff teams by like 20 or more or something like crazy like that.
Yeah.
They proceeded to call 6 run plays in the AFC Championship, a move that still keeps me up at night. I spent 2 years
as a Patriots fan.
Yeah, someone that I hate the Ravens, and I still can't stop thinking about that game. Honestly, like one of the most baffling games. I can't go down this road, Matt. I had a whole offseason of therapy to help stop me from picking the Falcons to win the NFC South and to help me get over the fact that the Ravens only ran the ball 6 times in the AFC Championship 2 years ago. And the therapy's not working because I'm talking about it and I'm getting pissed off all over again. But then the Ravens come back last year and win the AFC North again, only to shoot themselves in the foot repeatedly against Buffalo and lose a playoff game where they held Josh Allen to 127 passing yards and 20 rushing yards. Josh Allen had 147 total yards in that game, and Buffalo beat the Baltimore Ravens. Mostly because of self-inflicted wounds. A lot of you will probably remember that Mark Andrews dropped 2 absolutely massive passes in that game.
Literally the worst game of his career.
And yet he's back. When they lost that game last year, we talked about on the podcast, like, I do not know if that guy will be back in Baltimore next season. He's extremely critical to what they do. And I think obviously the right move to bring him back. But the way that ended last year for him was woof.
He has more credibility than Sam Darnold.
This is true. And plays a much less important position.
Yeah.
Now we're here. We are ready for the 25-26 NFL season, and the Ravens once again have one of, if not the best roster in the NFL. I had them ranked as the number 1 roster in the AFC this year. I think it's very, very good. I've talked about wanting to pick them to win the Super Bowl. a couple times on this podcast and then a couple more times to you outside of this podcast. But the biggest thing holding me back from picking them to win the Super Bowl is I know what they're going to do to themselves in the playoffs. It's like, wow, who's going to beat the Ravens this year? And I know the answer. It's the Ravens. The Ravens beat the Ravens every year. If they could have won either of the last two Super Bowls if they didn't shoot themselves in the goddamn foot. I mean, last year was a lot less likely, but 2 years ago was absolutely 100% unequivocally their year to win the Super Bowl. And the only reason they didn't is because of them. Can they do it this year? Can they get out of their own way?
The Ravens are literally the like I fear no man meme, but that thing that scares them is just looking at themselves in the
It's
mirror.
just running the ball in important situations. They're like the number one rushing team in the history of the NFL, like over the last 5 years or whatever it's been. They're like the greatest rushing team ever. And then when it's time to run the ball, they're like, I don't know. I don't know. We have the most lethal running play potentially in the history of the NFL. Like the two most dangerous running plays in NFL history are the Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry option play, and then just handing the ball to Barry Sanders. Those are the two most lethal running plays in NFL history. And you have one of them. Unfortunately, you don't have Barry Sanders, but also fortunately, you don't, because you wouldn't give him the goddamn ball if you did. During what, like when it matters, at least. So we'll see with them this year. I honestly think that if they can get out of their own way, they could win the Super Bowl this year. I think the roster is that good. It's either number one or number two roster in the NFL right now.
Last year at the time, they were better than both the Bills and the Chiefs. I think it would have been a much more interesting Super Bowl if it was Ravens Eagles, bird off. But yeah, no, like I've got no notes because we've been talking about this for like the last 3 years.
I know. I feel like I'm coming out hot here on this podcast, but this is a topic I'm extremely passionate about, even though I hate the Ravens. They
Yeah,
are
no,
my 1-year-old daughter's favorite team, though. So if people remember that joke from last year, that after my daughter was born, she would not like go to bed, so she had to stay up and watch primetime football with me.
yeah.
And the Ravens were on all the time, and she was so like her eyes would get so big watching the Ravens. She's like, "Ooh, purple."
Yeah.
What is your biggest storyline for the AFC North?
The Bengals are wasting Joe Burrow, and they're making it worse by not paying Trey Hendrickson. Every time they trick you into thinking, oh, maybe the Bengals have stopped being the Bengals, they turn around and like do something that's even more Bengalsy. And it's just like, wow, could literally any other franchise have drafted Joe Burrow? Because this is about as bad as it gets. Um,
And yet, they're the only AFC team to make the Super Bowl in the last 5 years.
I
Or
know,
last
right?
6 years, not named the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right? And that's because of how good Joe Burrow is. Um, like even looking at this situation with Trey Hendrickson, it's like, okay, maybe you can't pay him now, but maybe it would have been worthwhile considering that before you paid T. Higgins. Wide receivers have been coming out of the draft like gangbusters for the last 5 years. You had an elite edge rusher, and you're like, whoa, we shouldn't budget for that. Like, what? The situation is absolutely ridiculous. Like, they've had so many opportunities to change course, and they just continue to be the idiots in Cincinnati.
They're just cheap. They're a cheap ownership group. They're just cheap. They're cheap everywhere.
But like they weren't cheap when T needed his money,
I heard this
right?
analogy on another podcast that they're like the guy in your fantasy auction that spends all their money on three guys and then tries to fill out the rest of the
Yes.
roster with $1 guys
Yep.
and like can't get any good guys for $1 and starts getting pissed near the end of the draft because they're like, I can't get anybody good. What's the likelihood that we both vote for them as the bad vibes team this
Oh,
year? Because
100%.
like who's had a worse offseason optically
Yeah.
than the Cincinnati Bengals? You have the Trey Hendrickson
Hmm.
drama. You have the
Right.
Shamar Stewart drama of trying to put a new clause in your first round picks draft contract to like be able
Yeah.
to void his entire contract if he gets in trouble.
Hmm.
That's resolved now, but like I don't love that if I'm Shamar Stewart as I'm like, oh great. Like I was
No, he's
forced into
he's
this new
he's
shitty
walking
deal.
into that situation on eggshells.
Yeah.
And then like if I'm Trey Hendrickson, there's no way I'm setting foot on a field without a contract because he knows like he's getting his money one way or the other. Also, keep in mind that Aiden Hutchinson is also eligible for his extension now, and that will probably happen sometime over the course of this upcoming season because Brad Holmes doesn't generally wait and sign guys late.
Yeah.
And like if I'm Hendrickson, yeah, if I can let another guy in that tier sign before I do and continue to reset that market, you better believe I'm going to hold out because that just means I get more money in the end.
I also, if I was him, just wouldn't want to play for the Bengals anymore.
I am guessing that's kind of where he's at.
Yeah. This is the thing that's
Um,
so frustrating is like you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You have one of the best offensive players in the league, hands down, with Jamar Chase. We talked about the Bears on Tuesday and about how they seemingly learned their lesson and at least like invested a lot of assets into the offensive line to try to rebuild it. The Bengals looked at last year and learned nothing. The defense is going to be worse this season. It's like you had like 4 games you lost where you scored 30 plus points last year. You gave up over 40 points to the Pittsburgh Steelers with Russell Wilson at quarterback last year. And you're like, yeah, we're not going to re-sign our best defensive player. Bold move, Cincinnati. Bold
yeah.
fucking move. Win ranges. AFC North, starting with the Baltimore Ravens. We were 4 for 4 last week. Perfectly aligned. I have 11-15 for the Baltimore Ravens. Their over-under is tied for the best in the NFL, or tied for the highest in the NFL at 11.5. It's very high. There's like 4 teams tied at 11.5. I already made the case. I think they have the best roster in the AFC. They will shoot themselves in the foot,
Yeah.
but it won't be during the regular season. I think that they're going to be very good this year. Probably, in my opinion, be the number 1 seed in the AFC. Would be my guess. They're in that like 12-14 win
Mhm.
range.
Yeah.
Probably going to be enough to get it done.
Yeah. I have 10 to 14. So we're again pretty closely aligned on that one.
Nailed it.
Um, the Ravens always have some like weird game that they shouldn't drop that they drop during the regular season. Um, that's why I have them a little bit lower than the Lions. But yeah, they're still gonna win a lot of games.
Yeah. I think their schedule is a little bit easier than the Lions,
Yeah,
too. It's
I
like
mean,
just,
I think almost everyone's is.
yeah, it's hard not to be. All right. The next one, I think that this is the litmus test for alignment. I think that the Cincinnati Bengals are one of the most interesting teams to think about right now. Kind of pissed I have to go first here. I have Cincinnati's win range at 8-10.
Okay.
The over under is 9.5. Oh, what? No, 8-11.
8 to
Sorry.
11.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 to 11. I misread my own handwriting. Now I'm looking at the spreadsheet and it's an 11. So 8 to 11, over unders 9.5. I kind of forgot that this team was 9-8 last
Yeah.
season.
Hmm.
But my question is, what are we doing defensively? We just talked about this, but you lost 4 games where you scored 30 or more points last year. I don't like the vibes. They're like an all sizzle and no steak team where it's like they have all these weapons.
Yeah.
And it's like, God, that smells amazing. What is that? But instead of like there being no steak, there's like a dog turd on the plate. It just like somehow it just smells amazing. And you're like, wow, the rest of
It's
this
like
is total
you
shit.
walk into the kitchen there, you're like, what are you cooking? And it's just like, oh, well, I just threw some beef tallow on there and that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You're just like, okay. No, but it's like, it's worse than that because it's worse than nothing. It's like, it smells good. And you pop your head in the kitchen, like, what are you guys cooking? And they're like, dog shit. And you're like, oh, oh. But also, they have Joe Burrow. And I think we saw last year that like Joe Burrow is just going to Joe
Hey,
Burrow.
counts for a lot.
And I think that it's like Joe Burrow could throw for like 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns this season, and they could be 8-9. And nothing there would surprise me. What do you have?
Yeah. Are you ready for this? 9 to 11.
Probably not. Oh, here we go. When you said, "Are you ready for this?" I was like, "Oh, maybe he's gonna like surprise me and be like 5-7." Spicy.
No, like I feel like it's disrespectful for me, especially with the storyline that I chose, to be like, yeah, Joe Burrow is not gonna drag you to 9 wins, right? Like
Kicking and screaming, but he will
kicking and
drag you.
yes. Maybe he kicks it up a notch somehow next year and gets them to double digit wins. But yeah, I mean, that defense is going to be a problem. But
Well, it's like
I,
I don't even know
I,
if you have to kick it up a notch though, because they lost that really stupid game to the Patriots. The first game of the season, it was 16-10 or whatever it was.
mhm.
You just win that game, they're 10-7 and they're a playoff team last year. There it's like
Yeah, but
we
you
remember them.
also
I
have
think
to
we remember.
factor in that Joe Burrow historically always starts slow.
Yeah, but I just think we remember them so much shittier than they actually were last season, because at one point they were like what 4-8 or something, and then they were either
Yeah.
4-8 or 5-8, and they won 4 straight games to end the year, and it just
Hmm.
wasn't enough to
Yeah.
make the playoffs. But that, whatever happens, they're going to be the most fun team to watch this season, hands down. Like
It's going to be
absolutely crazy.
interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about 2 teams that we haven't talked about on this podcast so far, because we did narratives about the Ravens and the Bengals. Team 3 is the Cleveland Browns. I have 2-5. The over under is 4.5, which is the lowest in the entire NFL. One thing I truly don't understand is how their over under is lower than the Saints. And it's not necessarily that the Browns over under is 4.5. It's more like, how did the Saints over under get to 5.5? Like, maybe it'll be different by the time we record the NFC South podcast, but I like the Saints for worst
I,
record in the league.
the only thing I can think of is people really liking Tyler Shook.
Well, why?
But I mean, the biggest problem with Tyler Shook is that he he don't do pressure, and he's going to get pressure a
He's also,
lot.
how old is he?
Old.
47?
Yes.
What's his 5-year plan? Don't die? That's not a good, that's probably not going to
Yeah.
come true on the Saints, Tyler Shuck. Tell
Yeah.
your ridiculously good looking wife and start planning for a future without you, homie. No, he's like, what is he, 27? Some 26, 27, something like
Um,
that. He's old for a rookie, but um, I don't know. I guess like at least with Tyler Shuck, there's hope, right? And then you look at the Cleveland Browns QB situation.
25.
God, I felt like he was like 30. He was like 30 yesterday. At least with Tyler Shuck, though, I feel like there's hope that maybe he could be good. I don't expect him to be good, but like at least
Yeah.
there's hope. When you look at the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation, it's like there's five dudes and zero hope. Right? Like the only literally the only thing you can hope for in this QB room is like maybe Joe Flacco can be Joe Flacco from 2 years ago when he came in and took you to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But the rest of the roster is significantly worse from where it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, I think they're another nominee for bad vibes team.
Hmm.
You do have one of the best players in the NFL in Myles Garrett. And that's why I like them more than the
Yeah.
Saints is like at least you have a total fucking game wrecker on defense.
Yeah. And like what struck me when I was kind of looking at their depth chart and production last year too is like I kind of forgot that all of the pass rush production that they got last year was exclusively from Myles Garrett. Like they absolutely need pass rush help on this team, which was not the case even just like a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I think that they'll win like one or two games this season based
Yeah.
purely on the fact they have Myles Garrett because
Yeah.
he is that good. But I would nominate this team for bad vibes team as well as the
Yeah.
Bengals because you have Myles Garrett sending a goodbye letter to the city of Cleveland and saying, I don't want to be here anymore because I want to go somewhere I can win a Super Bowl. And then signing the richest contract in the history of defensive players like 2 days later. But like
Sure, I'll take
literally,
$160 million almost all guaranteed.
literally just told you like a week before he signed that contract, this team's never going to win a Super Bowl. So I want to leave. That's supposed to be the leader of your team. And then you have Quinshon Judkins, who everybody's all excited about them drafting, gets arrested for domestic abuse like
Yep.
immediately.
Yeah.
Not to
Yeah.
mention, you still have Deshaun Watson. We haven't even said the name Shador Sanders yet. Like, I do not like
Mm.
that locker room.
Yeah, this entire team is a powder keg.
I was ranking,
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier on the other podcast that I ranked all the quarterbacks in the league. And I put Cleveland and the Saints tied for last. And I said, who the fuck cares? Who plays quarterback for those teams?
Yeah.
Not care.
Yes, I am right there with you at 2-5.
Yeah. Yeah, of course you're right there with me. We ride or die on the Fouled Out podcast, Matt. Let's see if we can go 8 for 8. Pittsburgh Steelers. I have 6 to 10. And I feel like my ceiling for them is a bit high, but when you have Mike Tomlin as your coach, you have to have at least 9 wins in your win range because he's won at least 9 every single year he's been a coach.
Yeah.
And last year they won 10 with like Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. The one thing I want to tell the audience, I am not falling for the Aaron Rodgers thing this year. I will not do it. I made the case for the Jets in the past where I was like, they were really good with the worst quarterback play in the league. If Aaron Rodgers can be average, they could be a good team. Not happening. It's not happening this year. I am not picking the Pittsburgh Steelers to make the playoffs. They will not be one of my wild card teams, specifically because Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback. I do not believe.
He's
But
learning.
I just had to account for the fact that Mike Tomlin's their head coach because if this team goes 9-8, I'm going to feel stupid saying my win range is like, 5 to 8 or something like that.
Yeah,
Not to mention the D line I have is the best defensive line in the NFL.
I considered just making my win range 9,
I did that. When did
but
I do that? I did that last year. It's like
you
9.
did it like last year or the year before. I can't
Yeah, it was
remember.
one of those. I was like, I don't believe in this team, but I do believe they'll win exactly 9 games.
Yeah. Uh, I have 5 to 9. Um,
Working 5 to 9.
it's a much shorter shift.
Yeah. I would really prefer to work 5 to 9, Dolly. Thank you.
Yeah. I've been ahead of the curve on the Aaron Rodgers hate for quite a long time. Um, I do believe that the power of Aaron Rodgers is potentially strong enough to make even Mike Tomlin not able to drag a team to 9 wins.
This is what happens when an immovable force. Wait. Shit. What happens when an immovable force meets an unstoppable object? What happens when an immovable object meets an unstoppable force? I did it backwards, but it's what something has to give here, right? Like
Yeah,
Aaron Rodgers cannot make the playoffs. Mike Tomlin cannot win less. I mean, maybe the answer is they win 9 games and they miss the playoffs. Maybe Aaron Rodgers gets hurt and they win 9 games.
defense is getting a little long in the tooth. Like
The
you're
Mink the Minka Fitzpatrick trade was weird.
that to me feels like two teams that were both like, I don't want to deal with this particular player anymore right now. You take him.
Yeah.
And they were both like, oh yeah, we'll take your annoying guy if you take our annoying guy.
Yeah, I feel like Pittsburgh just had the weirdest offseason where it was like that trade was weird. The whole like we're gonna, DK Metcalf's like I want to go somewhere that's warm and is gonna compete for a Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden he's in Pittsburgh, and it's like, hey man,
You got neither of those things.
yeah, well it's like hey Metcalf and Pickens like that's something to be excited about, and they're like, no, trade George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys. It's like okay, so
Yeah.
how is this team any different from last year or the year before? Is like you have like I, people are going to not like me for saying this, but I feel like DK Metcalf and George Pickens are like approximate receivers talent wise, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like DK Metcalf is like
Yeah.
that much better than George Pickens.
Well, and they're both like big outside wide receivers, but neither of them are actually all that good in jump ball situations. Um,
It's yeah,
yeah,
it's weird, but like
it's
so you have him and you have Pat Fryermuth and like not a whole lot of
yeah.
anything
They
else.
they did get Jonnu Smith, which I
Hmm.
think I mean Arthur Smith just can't quit him.
Yeah,
But
chode coach Arthur Smith.
I mean it gives them another option. He's a good tight end. But yeah, I mean the biggest thing for me is they don't have that additional wide receiver. The trigger man, I fully don't believe in. And I'm sure the defense will be good this year, but like it's not gonna be like one of those years where we saw them so dominant that like yeah, they just had to get you to like 17 points to win a game. Like they're not gonna be that guy this year.
Can I interest you in Robert Woods? They're what
Which year?
now? He's on the Steelers.
I know.
Calvin Austin, Scotty Miller, Ben Skoranek.
Uh, it's just getting worse.
Oh, I do kind of like Roman Wilson a little bit. We'll see. we'll see what's there
There,
this season.
there might be a little something there, but yeah, I mean
Yeah, they
that's a
have
lot to
like,
ask him to be a legitimate number two from what he's done so far.
oh, hold on, Matt. You know who's on this roster right now?
I'd rather not.
One of your favorites, Trey Sermon. Ah,
Uh,
lower the floors. They have some guys I like. I like Caleb Johnson. He was a my guy.
yeah,
I like
no.
Roman Wilson. I like some of the
They're gonna
guys.
run a ton of outside zone this year. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, they do have Derek Harmon and Keanu Benton, which
Yeah,
is hilarious. They just take all the guys Matt wants for the Lions. But all right, bold predictions. Mine, I feel like this is where I started getting creative this year. Mine is that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to have the most points ever scored plus given up in an NFL season. So this one was kind of hard to do because it's not actually an NFL record, at least not one I could find. But what I did is I went back and I looked at the top 20 teams in terms of most points ever allowed and the top 20 teams in terms of most points ever scored. And I took those 40 teams and I added together their points for and points against to find out who had the most total points in NFL history. And as far as I can tell, it was the 2000 Rams, greatest show on turf, 540 points for, 471 points against, for a grand total of 1,011 points during their games. For reference, the 2024 Cincinnati Bengals scored 472 points and allowed 434 points. So they had 906 total points. We're talking about going up over 100 total points this year. So points for plus points against over 10-11 for the Cincinnati Bengals this season.
I mean it's a very real possibility with this roster.
I just, I'm excited to see it. Like I said, best team to watch this year. What is your bold prediction?
The Cleveland Browns will start not one, not two, not three, not four, but five different quarterbacks this season. I don't know who the fourth and fifth will be, but
It's just the five
by
dudes that
God,
are five dudes that are in the locker room right now.
five different dudes will start for this team this year.
The best thing will be when they enter the season with all five guys that they currently have. Love
Yeah,
it.
I mean, like this team is a disaster, and they're gonna start shuffling guys at some point, probably pretty early.
Yeah. I think Joe Flacco starts the season.
Oh yeah, I have little doubt on that. But at what point do they decide to, you know, test run their Minton newly refurbished Kenny Pickett?
He's hurt already. Already hurt. I like that one. I like it. Last year was like the first year we started getting truly creative with the bolds. And I am excited that we're continuing that tradition this year because that makes it fun. Division winner, I have the Baltimore Ravens.
I have the Ravens as well.
Yeah. I feel like these first two that we did were pretty easy.
Yeah.
Next week, we'll do the AFC and NFC North. And I feel like those are pretty easy too. And then it starts to get interesting after that. But I think there's a parlay in our future that's like Lions, Ravens, Eagles,
Yeah.
Bills division winners. That's looking pretty freaking solid. Not to give away next week's episodes, but
Things get really spicy when you start to slide down south.
but for now, that is it for us. That's as good of a place to leave it as any. Fouled Out can be found on
Uh,
Spotify, Apple Podcast, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Gmail, fouledoutsports@gmail.com, and you can find our videos on TikTok at Fouled Out Sports Podcast. It is a long name, but you can't miss it. If you missed Tuesday's episode, go back and check out the NFC North preview. Next week, Matt and I will be back Tuesday and Friday with the NFC and AFC East previews, the home of my favorite team, the 6-time Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. I'm going to get some kind of Patriot Super Bowl reference in every single week this year, so you guys can look forward to that. But all right, buddy, I'll see you next week.
yep. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Bye,
Bye,
Matt.
Robin.